Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever you are. My name is Julia Funk. I'm Senior Program Manager and Head of Statistics at IRF, and I will be moderating today's webinar. To kick off, I would like to warmly welcome our IRF President, Mr. Bill Halkias, for his welcoming remarks. Bill, over to you.
Thank you very much, Julia, and thank everybody for joining us today in this, I hope to be exciting webinar of IRF World Road Statistics and Data Warehouse. We are saying good decisions are based on good data, and the pandemic has once again highlighted the importance of good data and the role that it can play to influence policy and decision-making worldwide. We at IRF have long been strong believers in the power of data. Since 1964, the International Road Federation has been producing this annual data set, which is widely applauded as one of the most comprehensive data compilations of the road and transport sector. For almost 6 decades now, the World Road Statistics data have been an invaluable reference tool for governments, companies, organizations, multilateral banks, universities, and researchers wanting to understand and to analyze worldwide, regional, and national road-related trends and developments. We are delighted to have received testimonials and recognition from various organizations: World Bank, UNESE, International Transport Forum, American Association of State and Highway and Transportation Officials, the so-called ASTO, UN Road Safety Collaboration, and many others, and all of them prestigious. We are grateful to carry out this work every year, which will not have been possible without the support of our generous sponsors. We will once again like to acknowledge that our World Road Statistics 2020 sponsors are the Platinum sponsor International Road Safety, our Gold sponsors Oris and Helastron, as well as our silver sponsors, IBI Group, Gawar Construction Limited, and GR Infra Projects Limited. In addition to our annual efforts, we have managed to significantly modernize our data set in the past couple of years. Thanks to the generous contribution of the Total Foundation, which funded the creation of the IRF Data Warehouse, we were able to transform our data collection processes and tools, which we'll hear much more about it shortly. Through all of these efforts with regards to data, we also envisioned the support the work of the regional road safety observatories that are being set up around the world in each and every continent. I am honored to introduce today's program and speakers. During this webinar, you will first hear from our IRF Senior Program Manager and Head of Statistics, Julia Funk, who will provide some background on the World Road Statistics. We will then hear from Bruce Walton of Road Safety Analysis, who helped develop the IRF WRS Data Warehouse, who will explain some of its key functionalities. Next, we will be joined by Mr. Collins Matthew Omondi, Director of Microeconomic Statistics, representing Mr. McDonald George Oburo, the Director General of the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, who will provide insights into their important data work. And last but not least, Mr. Christopher Hedge, Research and Data Analyst at the IRF, will demonstrate the kind of analytical work that can be conducted with World Road Statistics, exemplifying this with 2 case studies on European road expenditures and CO2 emissions. Without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Julia Funk. Julia, please.
Thank you very much, Bill, for this warm welcome and for running us through the agenda for today's webinar. So as Bill said, I will be providing a brief introduction to the World Road Statistics. So briefly, as I believe most of you are already familiar with the International Road Federation, we are a global, independent, not-for-profit organization that was established right after the Second World War in 1948. We're based in Geneva, Switzerland, and operate globally. And we've also achieved the UN ECOSOC status since 1951. So our membership spans broadly. So we have public sector, private sector, academia, as well as civil society, NGOs. And we've been active for over 7 decades, and most of our activities focus around 3 strategic pillars. So firstly, it's a lot about knowledge sharing and dissemination. It's a lot about connecting businesses, people, and organizations, and thus enabling networking. And we also do a lot of policy and advocacy work at international and national level. So let's jump right into some context for the World Road Statistics. So this is a publication that IRF has been producing every year since 1964, meaning that the 2020 edition, which we published in autumn of last year, was our 57th edition. And over the years, this compilation has really developed and expanded massively. So currently we cover over 200 countries and territories with more than 180 indicators, and it's split into 11 sections, some of which you can already see on the left here, but we'll go into more detail about that shortly. And the way that we go about this is that we collect data from primary statistical sources. So for example, from ministries, road authorities, national statistical offices, who kindly provide us with this data. And the definitions that we use for this data set are based on the Glossary of Transport Statistics. So the glossary that was developed by the ITF, Eurostat, and UNECE. And our data gets used by a variety of actors, as Bill already mentioned. So it could be governments, investment and development banks, public and private companies, academia, NGOs, international organizations, and many more. In terms of the methodology that we go about producing this data set, we always cover the most recent 6 years in the annual survey that we send out. So for example, in 2020, we covered 2013 to 2018, and now this year in 2021, we're covering data from 2014 to 2019. And the reason why we always cover the most recent 5 years as well is that very often countries do have corrections or restatements or some other kind of refinement that needs to be made, and we want to ensure that we always capture those as well. And also, if there are more historic data changes, countries will also provide these to us and we can enter these in the back end. And the reason why we always have this slight time lag is that as we're now collecting data for our 2021 compilation, countries will simply not yet have the data for 2020 ready. So that's why we always have that slight time delay of 1.5 years. As I mentioned, we have this annual survey, which we used to just have as an offline questionnaire in 3 languages, English, French, and Spanish. But we have now, through the data warehouse, been able to also create an online data input portal, which you will hear more about shortly. And once we receive this data from the countries, we then also try to complement it with other national statistics, for example, from secondary sources such as official yearbooks in case certain figures were not provided, or if a specific organization might not have all the data that is available. And of course, we also go through a specific data verification process to ensure that our data is as robust as possible. And we compare with other sources, we reconcile definitions, units of measurements, and so on. To provide you some examples of the kind of indicators that we have, as I mentioned, we have over 200. So this is really just a quick snapshot of some of the key ones that people tend to be interested in. So for example, we are very well known for road network, where we cover the total length of road network in kilometers. And here we would also have the breakdown by type of road. So for example, motorways or highways, main or national roads, secondary or regional roads, etc. We would then portray the percentage of paved road that is included. We might also look at the density of total road network. So for example, how many kilometers of road exist per kilometer square of land area of that specific country. For road traffic, on the other hand, we might look at the annual traffic volume by vehicle category, so in million vehicle kilometers. So here we would have the breakout of passenger cars, buses and motor coaches, motorcycles, etc. Alternatively, we could also look at the traffic volume by road network, so again, broken down into motorways, highways, etc. We also have a section on multimodal traffic comparisons. So here, for example, we might look at inland surface freight transport by mode in million ton kilometers. So here it would be road, rail, and inland waterway. And similarly, for passenger transport in million passenger kilometers, we would have this breakdown by road. And here we would also break it down into private versus public transport and rail and inland waterway. If we turn to vehicles in use, we would have the absolute numbers by type of category. So again, passenger cars, motorcycles, etc. We might also then use some rates. So for example, looking at how many passenger cars are available per 1,000 people in the population, or how many vehicles are in the country per kilometer of road. Road accidents is one of the sections that we've really been expanding over the last few years. So here you just have some examples. So for example, persons killed in road accidents per 100,000 people, or the injury accidents per 100 million vehicle kilometers. And what we've really expanded upon is that now we also include the number of persons killed by road network. So for example, how many people died on motorways, highways versus on secondary or regional roads. And we also look at the breakdown by road user category. So was someone a pedestrian? Were they a cyclist? Were they a passenger or a driver? So we would try to capture all of this. And of course, we also try to capture the gender breakdown of fatalities as much as possible, as this data is very important. If we turn to production, imports, first registrations, and exports, we would have the absolute numbers of this as well, broken down by vehicle category again. And we would also differentiate between new and used vehicles. Road expenditures and revenues, my colleague Chris will tell you more about, but here, for example, we would have the breakdown by administrative level. So whether this is regional or local or central government spend, or if it might be from the private sector. And we would also look at it by category. So is it maintenance or construction? And we would do the same for road revenue. So is it toll revenue? Is it fuel tax, etc.? And then here are some more examples, such as fuel prices. So we might look at how these have developed over the years. Similarly, for CO2 emissions, what is the CO2 emissions, a million ton CO2 per year by mode? So again, for road, rail, inland waterway. And what does this constitute as a percentage of the total CO2 emissions of the country? And then lastly, on this list here, we have energy consumption, where we would look at in kiloton of oil equivalent, what is the energy consumption of the road sector and what is the total primary energy supply of the country. So again, this is just a quick snapshot of some of the indicators that we have. If we now turn to the IRF Data Warehouse, this, as Bill had mentioned, is a project that was generously supported by the Total Foundation. And we've been able to create a multifunctional online data platform on which we are now hosting the IRF data sets. And we also have created various dashboards that enable country and regional comparisons. And the intent is really to enable immediate and effective data visualization. And very importantly for us, we've added the capacity to integrate additional data sets from other sources. So lastly, as a couple of benefits that we envision from this data warehouse, is very importantly for us, all the countries who provide data to us are also eligible for free access to the data warehouse. So they have all of this available to them. And we also wish to support the regional observatories with these efforts. And for us internally as well, it has really enabled us to create a more robust data validation process because there are some automated checks that we can do, etc. And overall, we believe that the data warehouse just really enables an enhanced analysis, communication, and advocacy, and fosters better capacity building efforts at all levels. And as I had mentioned, through the capacity to integrate additional data sets, we can really foster collaboration and coordination. So I will stop here and pass the floor to Mr. Bruce Walton, Technical and Analysis Director of Road Safety Analysis, who has helped us to create and develop the IRF Data Warehouse, and who will provide some more details on what this platform entails. Over to you, Bruce.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Julia, and congratulations on coming in ahead of time. It's always nice to be in that situation. So I'm going to put a little bit of flesh on the bones of what Bill and Julia have mentioned about the recent changes to the way that the IRF World Road Statistics have been made available by the development of an online data warehouse. Data warehouses are a two-way street. Information comes in and information comes out. And I'm going to, in the next few minutes, try and show you how that process works and why there is such great benefit to be realized with it. I'm a director of two companies that both operate in the international road safety and transport spheres, Agilicis and Road Safety Analysis. It's with my road safety analysis hat on that we've been delighted to work in cooperation with IRF to create the data warehouse with, as has been mentioned, the generous support of Total. We've already heard a little bit about the heritage over 50 years. The World Road Statistics pedigree goes back, and that gives you an incredibly valuable longitudinal look at how the road safety picture has changed over a long period of time. And my word, has it changed over the process of that. And for over 20 years, IRF have been producing that information, not just in a printed format, but in an analyzable format as Excel worksheets that people were able to download and do what they needed to do with the statistics for their own local and national uses. But in the 21st century, just being able to download Excel spreadsheets isn't enough when there is so much more that you can do with the data. And we are working to find ways of bringing data in and getting data out that is as up to date as possible. And to that end, there's an ongoing evolution, both of the content of the data set itself, as Julia was saying, and also in the methods of how the data is handled. And these are some of the most recent developments. Countries can now input the data directly into an online portal. Countries can validate their previous year's data, as Julia says, over the last 6 years, gives countries opportunities to check and amend data to ensure that the ongoing long-term data set is as accurate as possible. And having the online portal also makes it easier for Julia and her team to validate that information so that it can be checked to make sure it's internally and externally consistent, and making it as reliable as possible. So those are some of the things that have been introduced just in the space of the last year as a result of the developments that we are making. But what this is all about is bringing the data into the 21st century and making it accessible both on the way in and on the way out in the way that one would expect of a flexible 21st century data set. Now, in order to give you a quick overview of what this looks like and what this feels like and how it relates to the real world, I'm about to show you a short video which has got some clips of the data warehouse in action. I'm going to try and give you a bit of a running commentary as we go through it. I should mention the video shows data from 2017, but of course the 2018 data is up there live now. I'll show a couple of slides with the 2018 data later on. And in the data input portal, the 2019 data is now being collected. So this is never a static thing. It's always an ongoing process, and that's very important to remember. So I'm now going to take my life in my hands and try and play a video for you. What could possibly go wrong? So I'm going to play that, and I think with a bit of luck that everybody should be seeing that. Okay, so the road environment is critical to the economy of every nation and the happiness of more or less every person around the world. But it is also dangerous, and nations need to know what is going on in their roads, both the good things and also the bad things that go on in their roads. And that's what the data warehouse is all about. It's all about making that available. So what this allows IRF to do is assign users to countries. A country can have as many users as they require, and that gives them access to the data warehouse. That nearly 200 metrics indicators that Julia was talking about are arranged into different themes and sub-themes in the bar down on the left-hand side there. And you can see that they're explanatory notes that explain in detail exactly what they all mean in accordance with the international standards that Julia mentioned. Users can edit the data, they can save their changes, they can come back later and work on the data. And this is making data collection much easier. And of course, data collection is the first step in a process that leads to insight. The data gives you information, and the information gives you insight. It's insight. It's not just for its own sake. So it's very important not only to collect the data, but also to get it out, to visualize it. This is an example of the data warehouse in action. Here, a user of the data warehouse is looking at road accidents in Malaysia, in this particular case, fatal road accidents. The information is available both as a graph and also as a table of data. And of course, the tables of data can be downloaded so that users can put them to their own purposes. And of course, it doesn't only cover the road accidents theme. Here's an example of the road network theme being used to show the development of the road network, in this case, in the United Kingdom. So, and that flexibility goes through all the themes, all the sub-themes, all the measures, anything you want, you can get out of it. But it isn't just about getting data out, it's also about comparing. Comparisons are very powerful because they allow you to compare what's going on. Here, in this GIS dashboard, Austria is being compared to other countries in Europe, and we can change at any time to a different country. And this is showing the key headline metrics for the currently selected country. Here we're looking at the motorcycle fleet in Estonia, for example. And you can flick easily from country to country through the key metrics and see them in the region. But of course, not all countries are like Estonia. The road networks are very different. And it's very important to be able to get a global overview and to compare different parts of the world. Here's another dashboard that we've created, and this has got two panels, as you can see, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the left is allowing you to select from Africa. The one on the right has been set to select a country from Europe. You can compare those countries with key metrics directly to each other. And of course, you can change your selection readily. And you can not only do that by region, but you can also do that by income group. Very important to make sure that you're comparing like with like meaningfully, because that's how you get the best information. We expect to give the best information to children about how to use the road network safely. But it's also important, if we're going to teach children, that we teach nations and make sure that that information is widely available to everyone so that we can all work to make road networks as efficient and effective as they possibly can be. And that is what the data warehouse is all about. Now, I hope those little clips of the data warehouse in action gave you an idea of the value of this information. So what has changed in the way that we handle this data as a result of the development of the data warehouse? Well, first of all, behind the scenes, we overhauled the data infrastructure so that it didn't depend on desktop products, but we've got a future-proofed, open-ended, flexible data infrastructure that will be suitable for serving the data in a variety of ways. You've seen several of those ways in action in the video. I'll show you a screenshot of them at a bit more leisure in a moment. And we're confident that what we've got is a future-proof structure that means whatever becomes the data delivery standards of the future, the IRF data will be ready to match up with it. The online data input portal, we saw a snap of it in action, means that countries can go in and bring their country's statistics up to date and review their country's statistics over the last 5 years whenever it's convenient. And in many ways, that makes data collection so much easier and so much more reliable. And of course, data collection is the first key to data value, because any data set is only as good as the collection process by which it's attained. One example of something we've been able to do there is automatic currency conversion. So countries can enter data about income and expenditure in local currency, and that can automatically be converted to an international standard. We have complete online administration and validation facilities that we've worked on with Julia in order to make sure that IRF are able to continue to apply high standards of data validation, make sure the data is internally consistent, and that is a great deal easier when the information is collected in a single database and being edited through a portal. And it makes it possible to address issues in real time, which again is a boon for data quality. And finally, it means that we can publish the data directly from source to a multiplicity of different outputs. We've already seen several different sorts of dashboard that can all be driven from the data. And of course, more traditional forms such as print output and the Excel spreadsheets that IRF have been famously producing for so long can all also be driven from that one single data source. This diagram is a quick overview of how the various components sit. In the middle at the top there, you can see the end user. who can enter data going down into that, that online data portal. Not only can the end user submit data through that, but IRF can validate data using the same portal. IRF also, of course, controls user permissions and access to the system. Once the information is in the portal and has been validated, it can be held in that online database in the cloud. Road Safety Analysis manages the infrastructure of hosting these things on behalf of IRF in order to support the ongoing work. And from that database, we can supply both the online data warehouse, and I'm going to look in a minute at screenshots of what they look like, and also, of course, publication of the World Road Statistics with quality assurance by IRF. That's how the structure hands together. So in summary, we have added value by creating the data warehouse to the venerable data that IRF have, by streamlining the data collection and validation, by making that online instant comparison of countries and regions and income groups to each other easier than it was, making the headline statistics quickly accessible and also easy to download from the data warehouse. And we talked about the value of international comparisons, and you saw the flexibility of how that was. Just to prove that we have the 2018 data in, which wasn't prepared at the time that the video was compiled, here's an example of the data warehouse in action. A user here you can see has selected a continent and some countries, and they have chosen to look at the persons killed rate. You can see this is people killed per head of population. So this is population risk for those three countries compared meaningfully to each other over the course of the last 10 years in this particular example. But if you are a user of the data warehouse, you can choose any continent, any country, any theme, any indicator, and work with it in exactly the same sort of way. Here's an example of the 2018 data in one of the comparison websites. We've got Kenya here, just by way of an example, being compared to Argentina. And you can see that the key headline metrics are being compared to each other so that you can see where different countries stand in different respects. And there's immense value to be had from making this information flexibly available. And I know that the next thing that we're going to hear is about an example of how a country can take information like this and really make a difference to the country. And we're going to hear from Mr. Collins Matthews-Amonde in a moment about how the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics are putting this kind of information to work. Obviously, if you would like more information about the data warehouse, don't talk to me, talk to Julia. That's the email address on the screen there, stats@irfnet.ch. If anybody would like to know more about what we do in international road safety, or technically how it works, I am Bruce at roadsafetyanalysis.org, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end. But right now, I am going to stop my share, and I am, as promised, going to pass the baton on to Mr. Collins Matthews-Amonde from the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, who's going to tell us a bit about how this is put into action. Collins.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Collins Amonde. I'm representing the Director General of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So what you're going to do, you're just going to share our experience on World Road Statistics Data Warehouse portal, and also look at the benefits from the collaboration we have with the IRF. So in terms of the presentation, we will, next slide. In terms of the presentation, our outline is basically, we want to mention what KNBS is all about. We want to talk about the importance of quality statistics, our data users. Then we discuss about the collaboration we have with the IRF. Then we look at which are the sort of indicators that we share in the portal, and the experiences that we have with the data portal. Then we look at the benefits that we have in terms of the collaboration with the IRF. Then after that, we would want to engage and see in terms of the further collaboration and in terms of the areas that we want to collaborate more with the IRF. So next slide. About KNBS, in a nutshell or in a summary, we are saying that we are the principal agency responsible for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating of official statistics in Kenya. We were created by an Act of Parliament, that Act 2009. And this is the act that we've been using. It was created in Parliament, so we are a semi-autonomous body. So our agencies plays a critical role in the national development by providing credible statistical information for evidence-based policy decisions. Next. So in terms of executing of our mandate as Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we take into account the role that we play in the integration and actualization of the aspiration of the national and international development agendas. Key being the Kenya National Development Blueprint. This is a Vision 2030. And also we have the Agenda 2030 for the Sustainable Development Goal. We know that SDG has 17 development goals with varied indicators to be achieved for a sustained development. So when you look at the next slide, when you look at Goal 9, especially, Goal 9 of the SDG envisages quality, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure to support economic development and human well-being, with a focus on affordable and equitable access to all. Our Vision 2030 also indicates key focal areas, such as infrastructure development, to enable the country achieve sustained growth for all. So our vision is key. When you look, we have a vision that is key, and the issues of infrastructure development are well spelled there. And we've been trying as much as possible to make sure that we have this vision implemented, so that by the year 2030, we'll have achieved what we intended to achieve. So when I look at the next slide, in terms of the importance of the quality statistics, well, as KNBS, we believe that quality statistics or quality data ensures better policies. It is against this background that the Bureau undertakes its mandate to ensure that quality statistics are produced to meet the dynamic needs of data users through use of best practices and methods in the production and dissemination of statistical information that we normally produce. Next slide. So in terms of the transport and storage statistics, we normally publish these statistics on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. We have a publication called the Monthly Economic Leading Indicator that we have some indicators on transport. Also, we have a quarterly indicator or quarterly report. This is, for example, the quarterly GDP report. It has, when you look at it, you'll be able to see the contribution of the transport sector. Then some of the key statistical indicators that KNBS normally reports on includes, some of the key statistical reports or the key reports in terms of statistics that we produce. The key indicators that we have things like the port throughput, we have the road transport, we have the rail transport, we have the air transport, the water transport, and things like the storage statistics. These are just a few of the statistics that we produce from the KNBS. So next slide. Next slide. So who are our data users? We are saying that the data users include government, private sector institutions, international organizations, academic institutions, private researchers, and the general public, among others. So those are just some of the data users that we normally have that uses our data as Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So the next slide. I want to move to how we started the collaboration with IRF. The key thing here is that to achieve our common mandate as Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, we normally partner with stakeholders, such as the data producers, data users, international organizations, among others, to ensure that the provision and comprehensive statistical information on transport and storage statistics that meet both international and internal and international statistical needs are met. So basically, this is the background. So we involve a lot of stakeholders to be able to make sure that our core mandate is met. And it is through these collaborations that we're able to make sure that that is achieved. So next slide. Our interaction with the IRF started in 2012 when there was a bilateral meeting that was held. The outcome of this meeting was just to request KNBS to provide annual transport statistics for dissemination by the IRF through the World Data Statistics Report. So this is we started in 2012, and through that we were just requested to provide data, and this is what we've been doing. So the next one. Then in 2019, we were requested again to participate in the Global Road Data Warehouse pilot program, an activity that intended to have country experiences from the interaction with the IRF web-based goal, with the IRF. I don't know whether it is showing me that my internet is okay.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Julia, am I being heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay. So as I was saying that in 2019, the Bureau requested to participate in the Global Road Data Warehouse pilot program, an activity that intended to have country experiences from the interaction with the web-based global road data known as the data warehouse. We were tasked with feeding the data into the data portal and giving feedback on the experiences to help IRF improve on the portal before adopting it for use. So that is what happened. Then the next slide. So what are some of the indicators that are shared in the data portal? In terms of the indicators, that we share in the data portal, we have a road transport value of output. We have expenditure on road maintenance. We have expenditure on road construction. We have new registration of motor vehicles. We have number of registered motor vehicles. We have reported road traffic accidents that are reported. Then we have road network coverage, and also we have the railway traffic. So these are just some of the indicators that we share. Next slide. Next slide, we are discussing about the experiences that we've had with the World Road Statistics data portal. The data warehouse is intended to deliver value by improving data collection methods, storage, sharing, analysis, and improved usage to provide more effective data-driven policies and activities. This came at the right time when the road safety has achieved, the road safety has received spotlight through the Global Decade of Action on Road Safety, 2011 to 2020. The next one. So the Bureau found Data Warehouse portal user-friendly and easy to navigate for submission of data. This is our experience in terms of the Data Warehouse portal. We found that it is a user-friendly and also it is easy to navigate for submission of data. In addition, the portal is interactive and data can be checked in real time. In case of clarification needed, the Bureau was able to get real-time feedback, which is contrary to offline Excel data request template, which took a long time before addressing the clarification. So as far as you're concerned, you're saying that so far, in terms of experience, we are seeing that the portal is user-friendly, and we are also saying that it is interactive in terms of us as a user, for us to be able to provide the necessary statistics that are required. Next slide. The portal also enables one to feed in the available data as they await other data sets. This enables the validation to be done in a quick and prompt manner, hence avoiding delays in submission. The pilot experience, together with the IRF Annual World Road Statistics, enable the Bureau to identify data gaps in transport and storage statistics that we normally produce and disseminate. So it was a good experience because from this we can say that we've been able to identify some of the data gaps, and through this collaboration, now we'll be able to see how we can be able to address some of those data gaps. So next slide, in terms of the benefits of the collaboration. IRF has continued to partner with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to rally for support around collection and management of data for both national and regional use. And in particular, we are saying that this collaboration has in turn significantly contributed to capacity building in compilation of transport statistics. The Bureau has also benefited from the EU manual for compilation of transport and storage statistics. The Bureau has also benefited by learning from the international best practices in the compilation of the transport statistics. The Bureau was also able to identify the data gaps as indicated in the transport and storage statistics just through the interaction with this data portal. Expansion of coverage of transport and storage statistics is also key because we've noted that through this we can be able to get some capacity so that we can expand our transport and storage statistics. And this one we're looking at issues like, for example, the storage statistics, the CO2 emissions, and the rest. So through this collaboration, I know we'll be able to benefit a lot of that. So next slide. So we are saying that also in terms of the benefit, we are saying that sharing knowledge on greenhouse gas emissions data, which is also key, because through this collaboration, we're able to share knowledge on this. And also, it also brings insight on the compilation of storage statistics. So from this collaboration, we're able to see that we can be able to do that. The next slide. Apart from the areas that I've mentioned, I know there are some also other areas that we could be able to seek some further collaboration and be able to see to it that at least we are able to address some of the data gaps that we are having. So in terms of this, the Bureau has been working with the IRF in order to expand the coverage of indicators produced. The expanded coverage of transport and storage statistics will go a long way in informing better policies. For instance, and this is key, The Bureau has limited statistical information on carbon emission, statistics on storage, and also statistics on energy consumption and traffic statistics. So these are some of the areas that we have limited information. So we hope that through this collaboration, we'll be able to address some of these areas and be able to see to it that we as KNBS, we are able to produce those statistics. Next slide. It is against or it is in regard to this that we are seeking further collaboration through technical assistance to enable us to produce better better transport and storage statistics for better policy making. And we've identified some of the areas that we think we can be able to collaborate further and be able to see that we get some capacity built and also technical assistance being offered to us to be able to see to it that we produce these statistics. And some of these areas that I'd mentioned them, and the issue of the CO2 emission, the issue of the storage and warehousing statistics, the issue of statistics on energy consumption in the transport and storage sector. Those are the areas. So, and if I go into details in terms of the CO2 emissions, next slide. We are saying that we are seeking support or collaboration to expand our statistics to include carbon emission within the transport sector. Then the creation of a greenhouse emission inventory will be of great importance to facilitate adherence of the country's international obligation on climate change, as well as tracking the implementation of climate actions in the sector. Then in this regard, we would like to partner with IRF to build capacity to officers. And we are saying that this initiative will equip the officers with the necessary skills and knowledge to collect, compile, and report on sectoral greenhouse and related statistics. In regards to statistics on storage and warehousing, the next slide, we also seeking to expand our storage and warehousing statistics. And to achieve this, we are currently developing a framework for the collection and reporting of storage and warehousing statistics. So would really appreciate that the collaboration between us and the IRF would build capacity to enhance storage and warehousing statistics. The other area that I mentioned was about the energy consumption statistics, which also saying that the Bureau is also, we have an interest in the computation of road energy consumption and total primary energy supply. This may include the gas, stroke, oil, and motor gasoline consumption. If we're able to produce these statistics, then we'll be able to, the Bureau will estimate the amount of energy that goes into the road transport subsector for the better policy and decision making by our government. So basically, in a nutshell, those are the issues that we wanted to share. Although we've not shared the indicators in terms of the statistics that we normally produce, but we are just sharing our experience and also the benefits that we've so far gotten from this collaboration, and also discussing our further collaboration or areas that would want some technical assistance through this collaboration between KNBS and IRF. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Obondi, for this insights. It's really fantastic to hear about your work and that we at IRF were able to contribute towards your data efforts. And we're also extremely thankful for the time you've invested in helping us to make the data warehouse as user-friendly as possible. It's definitely appreciated. and we'll definitely continue to collaborate to find solutions for the points that you've raised. Following all this information that we've just heard about what the World Road Statistics are, the new data warehouse and how it works, and also now we've heard from a country's own experience, we thought it would also be very insightful to provide some examples of the kind of analysis that can be conducted using the WRS data. So I'll now pass the floor to my colleague, Christopher Hitz, research and data analyst at IRF, who will provide us with some examples. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you very much. And I would like to show you how you can kick off your data analysis journey with the data inside of our data warehouse. So for this purpose, I want to show you how you can turn data into information and then information into valuable insights. To do this, as we saw previously, we can group our over 200 indicators into multiple categories. And in this part of the WRS webinar, we want to focus on two kickoff case studies. So the first one will deal with road expenditure and revenue data. The second case study later on will deal with carbon dioxide emissions data. So let's get started. When we talk about road expenditure data and revenues, we have more or less two groups. The first one is covering road expenses, and there we have data collected in local currency. And as we have seen before, we convert them into US dollars with a standardized exchange rate. We get this data from government and the regional and local governments of each country, and also from the central government as well, the private sector. So what can we ask? If we look at road expenditure data, it would be interesting to know how these have developed over time for different countries. So what we can do is we can have a look at the years 2013 as well as 2018. And on the x-axis, we can plot different countries. And then we can, for example, compute the percentual change between the expenditures on road expenditure, and we can plot this change on the y-axis. And what we see that for most European countries, this share has indeed increased between 2013 and 2018. And for example, if we look at the right-hand side of the figure, we can see countries like Slovak Republic, we can see Latvia or even Serbia. And compared to 2013, they have increased their shares in 2018 by a huge amount, like always in the range of about 80%. But we also have Poland. And as we will see on the next slide, Poland here also has increased its share a lot. But as we will see, they started from a very low spending base. So you have to pay attention what kind of conclusions you want to draw from these distributions. So instead of taking the reference to the gross domestic product, we can see that we can also split down the expenses in different categories. So here we have, again, all the countries on the x-axis, and then we have the percentage of GDP. So we plotted this for different years. So in red, we have the year 2013. We can go over in yellowish to 2017. And then we end up in green at the year 2018. So if you look at the average in 2018, most European countries spent around 0.8% to 1.2% of their gross domestic product on their road network. But if you have a look at Poland here, you can see that they started at a very low level. So in contrast, it is not a surprise that on the slide previously, we got a high percentage share. If we go to the left side of the distributions, we can see Albania. And Albania indeed stands out as one of the highest spenders. They spent around 2.2% of their annual GDP, which is much, much, much higher than the other countries. But then in 2018, their share drops. So they get more and more to the average European level. So how can we explain this pattern? One way to look at it would be to say, okay, that's Albania, and Albania belongs to the lower middle income countries. So they indeed have the desire to develop their economy and their country progressively further. And one way to do it is to invest a lot of money into their road infrastructure, because for several reasons, they were lagging behind this for the last decades. In a very stark contrast, we can go to Austria. Austria only spends at about 0.2% of its GDP in the past 6 years. So this could be driven by the fact that Austria previously already invested a lot of money, and it's also a high income country with a very small surface area. So their existing road network is already well established. So they don't have that need to spend more and more money into the road infrastructure because everything works already quite well. Very generally speaking, we see that larger surface countries such as France, for example, spend more money than smaller countries. And from a regional perspective, we can also add that Eastern European countries invest more into the road network than wealthier, more Central and more Western European countries. Then, so far, we only talked about the total expenditures in road revenues. So what we show here is each subplot belongs to one country. And again, we have the time horizon to up to 2018 on the x-axis. And on the y-axis, we've plotted the values for the subcategories. So in green, we see the total expenditures. In like reddish, we see the subdivision into constructions, and then in yellowish into maintenance cost. And without showing you all the countries, I can tell you what we have observed. So for most of the countries, the time evolution of the total cost is more or less very constant. But then we find several countries which have, like France, for example, a more U-shaped evolution of the total costs. Looking for reasons, we can find a high correlation and also causality between the total costs in green for these countries and the maintenance evolution. So this is very linked. So the total amount might be high at the beginning, then it drops a little bit and then it recovers. And this is due to the time evolution of the maintenance cost. But in very general, we can also state that there's not a significant difference between high and middle income countries regarding to the spending per capita. So here we didn't look at the GDP, but we were normalizing everything to get a more clear picture about how the total expenditures and the subgroups relate to each inhabitant. So if we turn our focus away from road expenditure data, we might have a look at more climate change related data. Therefore, we can take the variable like CO2 emissions. And for CO2 emissions, we collect them in million tons of CO2 per year per country in our database. And we cover different inland transport sectors. For example, we cover road, rail, and if they exist, also inland waterway multimodal systems. Some countries also provide us with additional data information from different sectors, like for example, electricity and the heat sector, even fishing industry or energy related industries. So for the next brief case study that you can see what you can actually start to do with our data, we picked the example region of Europe and we selected 21 European countries. So what can we ask for questions related to climate change? Well, of course, in our database, we have for each year and for each country, their CO2 emissions. So we could, for example, begin to ask, okay, how are the CO2 emissions in 2015? And then we go over to 2016, which is plotted here. And we can compute two different things. So first, we know how the CO2 emissions change for each country from 2015 to 2016. So we can compute the total amount of CO2 emissions, and we can cluster them into two groups. So in red, you can see the data of all countries which have increased CO2 emissions between 2015 and 2016. And as you can see, the share is very high. On the contrary, we have in greenish, we have labeled the countries which have decreasing their CO2 emissions. And we can continue to do this from 2016 to 2017, where the situation got even a tiny bit worse. But then from 2017 to 2018, something significantly has changed. So the share of countries which actually decreased their CO2 emissions is much, much, much bigger than in the previous years. So the next logical question would be to ask, what do we know about the amount of countries which contributed a share? And somehow surprisingly, we found that only 6 countries contribute to this really huge and large decrease in CO2 emissions, while 15 countries contributed to the increasing portion of the share. So we can zoom in and ask, do we have more information about exactly those countries in 2018? So what we do is we again have a look at the time horizon. And on the y-axis, we look at the percentage share, which we have plotted in the slides before. But now, except for these statistical box plots, which give you more statistical information on the distribution of the data, it is much more important to have a look at the scatter plots here. Because again, color-coded in increasing and decreasing countries, now each dot represents exactly one single country. So the 6 countries, we can find them here. And this tiny dot down here is Monaco, which somehow has managed to decrease their reported CO2 emissions by -20%. But as you can see, the median or average value for decreasing countries is more about in the range of -2 to -3%, which is also true for the increasing countries, but the spread is a little bit wider. So the next logical step would be to ask, okay, do we have more information about the total emission values for exactly these countries in 2018? So to get a more clear picture, we again somehow normalized everything to 100,000 capita per country to make the values for each country more comparable versus each other. And we were expecting maybe that countries which have decreasing values might cluster and countries which increasing value might cluster as well. But as we can see, that's not the case. So all the green labeled decreasing countries, they spread over the whole range. So we have countries which have like an high amount of CO2 emissions per 100,000 capita, but also we have countries which have a lower amount per 100,000 capita. And same is true for the increasing countries labeled in red. Furthermore, we can see that countries with a low population like Albania and Ireland, they are ranked here at the highest portion, but we can also find small countries at the lower part of this figure. So we don't get a clear picture to correlate emissions to the country size, to the population size. But I also have to mention that you have to be careful with the analysis because everything is linked per 100,000 capita. So out for mathematical reasons, these results might be more obvious than surprising. So I hope that I could give you a very brief overview what you can do with the data in our data warehouse, how you can take them, how you can transform them, how you can analyze them. And if you have any questions, you can always drop me an email and we will come back to you as soon as possible. So I'm happy to hand over the floor back to Julia, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you so much, Chris. I think it's extremely interesting to see the data we collect come to life and tell a story, and the kind of work that is really possible to do with this. So unfortunately, we're running slightly late, so we don't have time to take more questions at this stage, but I've dropped our email addresses in the Q&A and in the chat, so please do feel free to reach out to us. And we hope to be able to answer your questions at a future stage. In the meantime, I also warmly invite all of you to visit our website, worldroadstatistics.org, to find out more about our available data packages and to email us with any questions. So my sincerest thanks to all the speakers and to all of you for joining. And I would now like to pass the floor back to our president, Bill Halkias, for some closing remarks. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Julia, and congratulations for excellent moderation. Thank you, really. And I thank all of our speakers for these insightful presentations. It is great to see and hear how these new tools developed by IRF, this interactive software, is facilitating the work of countries' statistical efforts, such as the Kenyan National Bureau of Statistics, that we hear from them, as well as for our own IRF analysis and insights. So we are strong believers in evidence-based policy and decision-making and look forward to supporting these efforts moving forward. If the pandemic has taught us one thing, it is certainly about the power and the importance of partnerships. And Susanna Zamataro and her team back in Switzerland does nothing else but trying to reach out and create more partnerships and more associations. So please reach out to us. We're always looking into ways to further expand our data collection. And it is by joining forces that we can definitely increase reach and impact. Our sector, I will say that over and over again, and I will keep saying it, that our sector needs good data, and we are open to explore collaborations that can help us serve the sector to the best of our abilities. Compile data from various sources, check about their validity, go back and monitor again and again. This is something that needs to be done. We plan on hosting another World Road Statistics webinar. I would like to say seminar face-to-face, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it's going to be a webinar with particular focus on road safety data in the coming months. So please stay tuned for more information on this. In the meantime, let me invite you to join us for one of our next webinars, which are all in the next days to come. On Tuesday, the 25th of March, 2021, we'll be having a webinar on making transport resilience to pandemics. On Monday, 29th, a few days later of March again, Africa responds to COVID-19 impacts on transport and mobility. And on Thursday, the 15th of April, 2021, we will be talking about the fiber mastic asphalt technology and novel material for more resilient roads. Again, thank you all and have a great day.